Hi and welcome. In today's video I'm going to help you build your first FPV quad. We will start with looking at the components that I've chosen for this build and how to actually connect them together, and in the second part we will go through the beta flight configuration. Let's go! Let's get over the components that I'm going to use for this build, and let's start with the frame. For the frame I'm using the iFlight Nazgul XL5 V5 frame. It's really rigid freestyle frame. It's almost not bending. The cool thing about this frame is that it comes with these 3D printed TPU plastic parts, which will help to protect the life of your frame. Another cool thing about this part is that it comes with this 3D printed part, and it's really easy to get the antenna out from this hole. And I'm also going to put my receiver inside, so it will make the build much cleaner. And for the receiver, I'm using the FrSky XM Plus full range receiver. It's really cheap, just for the $15 you can get this one, and it works perfectly. I tested it on all my previous builds, so no concerns so far. The next part is the stack, which is going to be the brains of our quad, and this is the Mamba stack, which has F4 processor on the top and 40 amps ESC on the bottom. It's really beginner friendly because it's already comes pre-built and actually connected. One thing to keep in mind for the beginners is that you see this FC label right here. This side of this connector should always go to the FC. If you switch it other way around, you can actually may fry up the whole thing, and you will need to start from the scratch. Another cool thing about this stack that it comes also with all these additional M3 bolts and washers, so really good. And it also comes with the capacitor. Capacitor helps to filter out the spikes of the electricity, and so I will show you how to install it later. The eyes of our copter is going to be this Ishin BET19S camera, cheap camera, good value, nothing much to talk about it. For the video transmitter, which will transmit the video from the camera to your goggles, I'm using the Ishin TX 805. I use it in my previous builds, and I have one spare laying around, so it's really cheap, it's good value, and it's up to 800 milliwatts of the output. I've seen the test that it actually doesn't go that far, but still a good value proposition. And as the antenna, I'm going to use the Foxeer Lollipop, so it will actually stick out from this hole, as you will see later on. And the motors, I'm using the Emax Echo 2 series, and this is, you see the small numbers down there, this is 2400 kV. This is the 4S motors, because this is a budget build, and 6S batteries are usually more expensive. So if you want to build the 6S, you should go for the 1700, 1800 maybe motors, and the kV it's actually RPM per volt. So for example, the 4S battery has 14.8 volt. So to get a copter flying, the total RPM of the motor should be around 40,000 RPMs, and this actually with 2400 and 4S battery will actually bring us right there. Yeah, that's all about the parts. All of the parts you can actually find in the video description, and it will help the channel a lot if you buy them using those links. It will not cost you anything, just a small commission for me. Let's get over the tools as well. So for the hex driver, I'm using this hex driver, and it comes with 4 different switchable heads. So it's pretty much all you need for your copter build. And for the soldering iron, I'm using the cheap soldering iron, nothing special, with the changeable heads, soldering tips. So it has the temperature regulated. Yeah, the links for the tools is going to be also in the description. That's it. I think we're ready to start with our build, so let's go. I like to start with soldering components to the flight controller first, And let's start with the camera, and you see that the camera actually goes with these really long wires, and we do not need them. So first thing that we will need to do is we need actually cut them, measure the distance. This is going to be the front of the quad, so this is our camera somehow going to be mounted right here. So I will say just leave some additional room just in case. So we will cut it right here. First thing that we need to do with the freshly cut wires is to thin their tips. It will help hold the wires on the tips together, and it will make easier to solder them to the flight controller later. Let's do one wire together. Set your soldering iron to around 260 degrees Celsius, and then bring the tip to the wire, and on top of it just tap a little bit of solder, and that's it. So right now it will actually stick to the flight controller much more easier. Now the wires of the camera are ready, but where should we actually solder them to the flight controller? And it's really easy for Mamba. It comes with this little cheat sheet, right? So you can actually align it. I'm usually aligning it by this computer port, and here is the computer port. So if you put it like this, you will see here that this 5-volt ground and camera, this is actually the camera alignment. And if you look to the camera itself, you can see that it can get from 5 to 30 volts ground and video. So the power is red wire, the ground is black wire, and the video output is actually the yellow wire. Look at this tip. We know that we need to prepare the 3rd, 4th and 5th solder pad on the flight controller. So let's do that right over here. So these 3. So preparing pads is pretty easy. First thing you need to keep in mind that your soldering iron should be nice and shiny, like here, to transfer heat the most efficiently. And then what I do, I remember that we need to prepare this and this pad. So what we do is that we apply a heat, and then we apply a solder until it actually forms such nice shiny bubble. Okay, go on, another one, and the last one. Okay, so don't worry if you actually accidentally join 2 these parts together, for example like this, if you just being a little bit messy, so it's not a problem at all. So what you need to do is that you need just to swipe it out like this, and you see they are already separated. So, and again, nice and shiny. Pads are ready. Next thing that we need to do is actually solder the camera, and the camera is going to be facing here because this is the front of the quadcopter. So, and it's going to be really inconvenient for me to solder it from this side because I'm right-hand sided. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate my quad, then I'm going to refer back to my tips, right? So right here, so this is was before and this is right now. And I know that the first one is the camera, then ground, then 5 volts. So what I need to do is just take my wires. I remember that the camera is yellow, and solder it to the first pad. For this I'm soldering a little bit in the beginning, heating up the pad before. Okay, this one is done. So just put in a heat to the pad, then put in a wire on top of it and applying a heat a little bit more. Wait for a second until the wire is soldered, and the last one is the power. It's the same. Okay, nice and clear. Let's take a closer look of what we've got. So we've got 3 wires connected. It looks a little bit messy, but this is okay. So the next thing that we're gonna work on is going to be the video transmitter. Let's get back to our tip, and you see right here we have the video output, and we have the TX3, which we're gonna use for the smart audio. We have the ground and 9 volts. So let's get to our markings on the video transmitter. So this is going to be the smart audio. Well, this is the 5 volts, ground and video. These two, we do not need them for now. So just follow just these 4. So let's apply our tip. We are aligning the computer port with the computer port. Okay, and we see that for the video, we're going to need the 5 volt, the ground, TX3 and video. Okay, let's prepare these solder pads. And again, so the first one is the 5 volts, yeah, just like this. The next one is the ground. Okay, the next one is the TX3 for the smart audio, and the last one is going to be the video. And I'm actually going to solder them inside, so not pointing outside but inside. So and let's start with the 5 volts, which is the red wire. So just applying a little bit of, yep, this one is done. The next one is going to be the ground, and I'm going to grab tweezers just to be more precise. So the next wire is ground. Okay, we got it. We hit in a little bit bad, and then we pushing the wire down. Okay, good. So the next one is TX3, which is the smart audio. So just like this. Okay, good. And the last one is the video signal. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Yep, so we see that the contacts are not touching each other, and this is the most important thing. Going back to the tips, the radio is right here on the left side, and we have the ground, 5 volts, and the S-bus. This is the standard protocol for the FrSky radio. And if you refer to the cover or to the box of the radio, you will see that the first wire is the S-bus, then 5 volt, then the ground. Let's take a look here. So this is the bind button. Yeah, so the white is going to be the S-bus, 5 volts and ground. Okay, so rotating it once again, and I'm going to rotate the tips just to make life a little bit easier for me. So I need the ground, 5 volt and an S-bus, and this is going to be ground, 5 volt and S-bus. First, just solder this part a little bit. Okay, right, 1. So the next one is the 5 volt, and the last one is the S-bus. Yep, and just to make life a little bit easier for me, I will put it right here. So the wires are a little bit too long, but I'm totally fine with it. So let's start with the S-bus. Okay, this one is done. The next one is going to be the 5 volts. Yeah, nice and easy. And the last one is the ground, which is usually the hardest to solder. So just be patient with yourself, you'll get it. Okay, so I put a little bit of solder on just the next part, but as long as they are not connecting, that is fine. So let's take a look. Yeah, so that's basically it. We're done with the flight controller. Let's go to the ESC soldering. First thing that you need to do is, of course, to prepare the pads. And here is the plus and minus. So just do not worry if it takes some time to solder, because On the ESC, the heat dissipation is much better, so it's actually just hold it for a little bit longer. Don't worry if the temperature is a little bit bigger. So yeah, see that it's still not soldered good enough, but yeah, let's add a little bit more. Okay, so in the end you have these two nice bubbles, and then with the help of the tweezers, because it will take some time to actually heat this thing. Yeah, I'm applying heat from this side, so when I'm waiting for it to be transferred all the way down, and then yeah, just like this. So I'm probably gonna add a little bit more of the solder. So and now I see that it's slowly starting to solder all the way down. So be patient. And the minus is done. I needed to actually increase the temperature to 382 degrees because otherwise it wasn't soldering at all. So let's now do the plus. Okay, so I feel like we will need actually additional solder right here. So the XT60 I think is the trickiest part to solder for the beginner. Yep, okay, so here is it. Nice and clean, we are ready with the XT60. Next thing is to solder the capacitor, and these come inside, and you see this is the minus and this is the plus. So this is how I decided to put the capacitor. Make sure that the plus and minus are connected to the correct sides. The last thing is the motors, and what we're gonna do actually pretty much the same. So we're gonna prepare the parts. Just these parts are bigger, so it might take a little bit longer time than the flight controller. So what I like to do is I like to solder the motors from the inside. So just putting it from this side, because in the end it makes the build much cleaner. But if you're struggling with it, don't worry, and solder from the side you actually want to. So this is the result of soldering motors. Next thing that we're gonna do is actually put the flight controller here back up. So you see I'm using these plastic things to keep it in hold, and then I'm gonna place my receiver right here and assemble the rest of the parts and get back to you with all the updates. So this is my final result. I've added tape to secure the wires. Also, I've secured my stack, and you see that it doesn't touch with any part the bottom frame, so everything is fine. I also checked the continuity, and this is also fine. The really nice feature that I love about this frame is that in the end it also has the 30 by 30 mountain holes. So when I was able to put the video transmitter right here, so it's really nice right here. So, and also I added the antenna, and I added a little bit of the heat shrink around the receiver antennas just to secure them a little bit. Yeah, so that's it. It's built, and in the next part I'll walk you through the setup of the quad, and see you there.